Please remember there are additional resources and things such as code samples at elithecomputerguy.com. So if you're watching one of these classes and you need to know what code looks like, or if you need links to the resources that we're using, please go to elithecomputerguy.com and take a look at our class posting there. Also, please remember that free to the end user classes are not actually free. It costs me a lot of money to be able to provide this type of content. So if you could click on the donate button and throw in a couple of dollars every month, this will help me be able to continue to provide you this type of material. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, and today's class is Sanitize Strings in Python. So what do we mean by sanitizing strings? Basically, what we mean by sanitizing strings is that we're going to clean up the string of variable value so that we can use it within our code. So one of the problems that I've talked about before is this whole idea with programming or with databases with garbage in equals garbage out, right? If you put bad data in or poorly formatted data into your data store, when you go to pull the information out or when you go to do queries, it is going to be a bit of a disaster for you. So simple things. So if you have users inputting information, can you clean up the information that they're putting into your system so that it doesn't create vulnerabilities? So one of the things I'm going to show you how to do today is called an HTML escape. So if a user basically is trying to input values into your system to try to hack it some way, basically be able to do an injection attack, what'll happen is this little escape method will go through and it will change out all the HTML tags into something that looks like HTML but isn't actually HTML, so that you will not add vulnerability to your platform if it's displayed to other users. Other things such as different systems deal with capitalization differently, right? So a lot of modern systems, if you have a name that has an uppercase first letter and lowercase other letters, and then you have the exact same name where it's all lowercase, many modern systems will see that as the same variable value. Many will, many, not all. So one of the things that you might want to do is simply whenever users are inputting data into your system, simply make everything lowercase or make everything uppercase so that the case for all those variable values in your database or your data store is the same and you don't run into any kind of weird problems. Or basically, if you're grabbing data, possibly something from something like an API call, being able to go in and be able to delete parts of the entire amount of data that comes in so you just get the variable value that you're looking for. So that's the type of thing that we're talking about when we talk about sanitizing strings. I'm going to show you some ways to sanitize strings today, but there are many ways to do this, and what you need to be thinking about is your particular project and your particular platform. What vulnerabilities will your platform have? What are the concerns that you have with the data coming in? And then you design your sanitization process based off of those issues. Now here's an example of sanitization using the lower method, the upper method, and the title method. So let's say we have some kind of form that users are plugging information into, and so they plug in their name of Bob, uppercase B, lowercase o, uppercase B, right? Now again, with most modern database systems, that type of thing, this would not be an issue. But with some systems, this may be different than uppercase B, lowercase o, lowercase b, or all lower cases or all upper cases or whatever else. And so basically what these methods allow us to do, lower, upper, and title, is that they will modify the variable so that everything will be in lowercase, everything will be in uppercase, or the first letter will be capitalized and everything else will be in lowercase. So if we go and we run this, basically we can see the original name is Bob, B-O-B, so uppercase, right? Then we go name.lower, now everything is lowercase. Then we do name.upper, everything is in uppercase. Then we do title, first B is uppercase, everything else is lowercase. And so this is one of those things that you can do to sanitize the values that are coming in, right? If you were getting things like street names, email addresses, people's names, whatever else, simply making all of those lowercase or uppercase, but most likely lowercase, and inputting that into your database, that will just create a consistency of the variable values, how they're styled or how they're formatted, so that you might not run into the issues going into the future. Now, the next method that you can use is something called the replace method. So what the replace method does is wherever it sees the character that you designate, it will replace it with a different character. So up here, right? So we have the single quotation marks, and then within the single quotation marks, we have Bob within double quotation marks. So let's say we're pulling this value, again, maybe out of some kind of CSV file, a comma-separated value file. So we had some kind of program, we exported the CSV file, and then now everything within that CSV file, not only is it separated by commas, but it also has double quotation marks around all of the values. And so if you want to put that data into your database, you just care about the name, you don't want those additional quotation marks. So basically what we can do here is we say name.replace, we put single quotation marks, and we say we want to get rid of the double quotation mark, and we want to replace it with nothing. So single quotation mark, no space, single quotation mark, right? So if we do that, basically we do the replace, we can see that the original Bob, so Bob within the double quotation marks is here, and then Bob without the double quotation marks is here. So we replaced the double quotation marks with nothing, right? Just to show you that we're actually replacing it with things. So I could do this. I could do, let's say, three hashes for some reason, or three lines for some reason. Now I do this. We can see we have Bob within double quotation marks, and now we have Bob here with three hyphens on either side. So basically what the replace allows you to do is it allows you to go in there and then basically be able to replace specific text with whatever it is that you want to replace with. If you don't want to replace with anything, you can simply replace it with single quotation mark, nothing in the middle, and so that will get rid of it. And so that can be very useful. Again, for getting rid of punctuation marks, again, a lot of times when you're importing data, you'll have a lot of punctuation marks. You might have a lot of special special characters based off of the system that you're importing from. And so this is a way to simply get rid of those types of special characters to get you to the value that you're looking for. The next method that we're going to look at is the strip method. So if we use the strip method without any additional arguments, what this is going to do is it's going to get rid of the white space either to both the front and the back of the value that you're bringing in. So again, this can be an issue. Let's say here, so Bob, we have 3 single spaces, and then we have 3 to begin with and 3 single spaces at the end, right? This is going to be different than Bob with no single spaces. So that's a problem that you can run into, right? Somebody might not be trying to be nefarious. They simply put a space, right? So they're looking at that web form. For some reason, they just put a space in the beginning because, they're being users. And if you try to do space with Bob, that is going to be different than Bob without any spaces. And so what the strip does, if you have no additional arguments, is we'll simply strip out the white space. So we have print, we're doing an F string. I'm putting these hyphens here just so you can see where the spaces are or aren't, doing the same thing down here after we've stripped the white space to either side. So when we run this, we'll see hyphen, 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 then we have 3 spaces Bob, then 3 spaces hyphen, 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 right? So this is the entire variable value. And again, if you put that into the database, you can have problems. So here, what we're doing is we're stripping out the white space around the variable value so that we only have Bob. And so now you can see that there's no white space around that variable value Bob for the name. And so that's one of the things that you should really do, again, whenever you're getting users input from users. Sometimes they do a couple of spaces, they do weird things. Maybe they type their name and then they do a space right after they type their name for some strange reason. And that can be a problem because the name with the space is the entire variable value. And depending on what you're doing, that might run you into issues later. Then we can come down here. And again, when we start looking at things like strip, we can strip from both the front and back of the string, whatever characters, right? So let's say we're just trying to hash up, like we're just trying to make it so if somebody tries to put in like HTML information, we're just gonna screw it up for them for whatever reason. So this person plugs into username H1 Bob, close H1, right? So they're trying to make Bob all big. They're trying to add some kind of HTML tags into this. So what we're going to say here is from either the front or back, we want to eliminate these little, the little angle brackets here, right? We want to get rid of those. And so what we're going to do is when we run this, we're going to see this is the original Bob. So Bob within the H1 tags. And if you look at Bob down here, you'll notice the angle brackets at the end have been eliminated. So we simply got rid of those two, again, basically to screw it up and also just to kind of show you how that works. Beyond that, here, let me just comment out that we can keep going down. So we print username. So we can left strip. So what left strip does, so strip will strip both to the front and back of that variable value. lstrip will strip to the left, and rstrip will strip from the right. And so if we do this then, right, so basically we're doing here, username equals username dot lstrip, so left strip H1. So if we come down here, we see we had H1, Bob, close H1. Then we killed the angle brackets on either side, and now you'll notice with Bob, there is no longer an H1 to begin with because we L-stripped, we left stripped off the H1 from that left side. If we go down here, again, we can do right strip, so R strip for H1. If we want to get rid of this H1 over here, we can strip that out. And now we have just Bob within these particular angle brackets. So this can be very useful. Like we're going to do... we're going to be doing more projects with using OS applications. So we used the OS module before. So you can use things like Nmap. So Nmap will scan a network for you and then present you with all the values that it found. So many times, if you want to take those values and dump into a database, you have to clean those values up. So one of the things that you can do is you can use strip and you can use lstrip, you know, to remove, especially if you know exactly how the formatting is going to look. Okay, you remove some from the left, you move some from the right, and then you just get the variable value that you're looking for. That's one of the things that can be very useful for you with output, that standardized output that you know that you're going to get something for. So anyways, so the big thing with strip, so if you don't do anything else, if you never do anything else, just make sure you know the strip method. If you just use it without arguments, will strip white space to the front and back of the variable. You need to do that anytime you're getting values from the user. Basically, almost anytime you're getting values from anything, you need to strip the white space from the front or the back because that can cause you problems. And then from here, again, you can use a strip to strip from the front and back specific characters, and then you can use lstrip and rstrip to strip specific characters, again, from the front or from the back of the variable value. Now we're going to look at the HTML escape method. So this is a type of method where you might need to do a little bit of research to figure out exactly, you know, what vulnerabilities you're looking for. If you're going to be inputting into a SQL database, if you're going to be inputting into some type of other data store, you might need to look for specific functions or modules that allow you to clean up that particular type of data. So what this is for is this is basically to prevent attacks that you may have seen in the old days. You go back about 5 years ago on a lot of web forums. So you remember not that long ago, people would throw up their web forum, and then all of a sudden within the discussion of the web forum, you'd have iframes that would pop up and JavaScript that would pump up, and there'd be links, and there'd be a whole bunch of vulnerability garbage there that would cause problems for the people that were actually trying to use the board. And the reason is because before we had good sanitization procedures, basically, wherever you had text, somebody could actually input HTML, JavaScript, CSS, that whole thing into the message, into the input, and then the web browser would simply display all of that regardless of what anybody wanted. And so that was a big vulnerability back in the day. So you could actually add like an iframe, or you could even add JavaScript directly into the message, into the discussion on these bulletin boards, and then you can have things like we used to have registry edits actually get dumped directly into Windows machines simply from that type of thing. And so what we're going to be using today is we're going to use the html.escape. So we're going to be using the escape method. And what this is going to do is it's going to change anything that looks like an H1 tag into something in text that looks like HTML tags, but are not actual HTML tags. You may have heard this in the hacking world right now, things like with, phishing attacks, where you'll get an email and it'll say like, click on this thing, and the character will look almost exactly like the normal character looks like, but it's slightly different. That's the kind of same thing that we're doing here, is that when this gets printed onto a page that has HTML, you'll see what looks like these tags, but they're not actually the tags themselves. Let me actually run this script so you can see what I'm talking about. So user message equals hello world with an H1, and then we have a href for click me going to cnn.com, the most dangerous website in the world. Basically, we are going to write that. We're going to write that to our sanitize.html page. Then we're going to sanitize a string. We're going to sanitize a string and then print the exact same, the same string after it's been sanitized to the same page. So I'm going to run this. We don't get any response because we don't need it. We have the sanitize.html got created. I double click on this, and so this is what you can see, right? So the non-sanitized text that went in says hello world and then click me, right? The sanitized text, we have things here that look like HTML tags, but they're not actually HTML tags, and so therefore the web browser doesn't present them as HTML tags. Like for this click me, right? I can click on that, and it takes me directly to cnn.com, and my brain will be melted. If I go and I take a look at source, so I can do show page source, what I can see here, all right, let me, can I expand this? What I can see here is, see, hello world is with an H1. ahref, cnn.com, click me, right? That's all within the ahrefs. I then have an HR, that's just for a line. But then what you'll notice down here in the sanitize string, instead of having the H1, instead of having the HTML tags, we have these ASCII codes, right? And these ASCII codes will provide us something that looks like the HTML tags, but are not actually functional HTML tags. And so this is one of those things that you can use, like you'll see this a lot, like if you use WordPress and you create a block that allows you to add code so people can see it, right? So if you're doing, so if you go to elithecomputerguy.com, and you go to it and you look at our code blocks, one of the ways that we can show things like HTML code or CS code and it doesn't screw things up is basically it formats it using these ASCII codes instead of using the actual text that it's supposed to use. And so that's how the sanitization procedure protects your system from being vulnerable. The other nice thing about this is that you can actually, instead of stripping this out, so if you strip this out, then nobody realizes that somebody's trying to hack them. They don't realize that this might be a bad actor. By leaving all of this in, simply escaping out what they did, it kind of proves that this is probably not somebody that you want to be dealing with because they're trying to hack your system. If we go over and take a look at it, again, it's a very, very simple script. So we're going to import the HTML module. And again, this is where I say, depending on what you're trying to escape out of, you may need a specific module. This is the HTML module. User message equals, again, the H1 with the ahref, with open. So we're going to open the sanitize.html. We're going to overwrite it. So W is overwrite as file. We're going to do file.write, the user message, and then we're also going to do file.write, HR. That's going to give us our line. So this is going to give us the user message with the HTML formatting intact. Then we're going to go here, sanitized message equals html.escape, user message, variable value, and then we're simply with open, sanitize.html, A for append, add to that file as file, file.write, sanitized message, and that's going to give us the sanitized message. And that's really all there is to it. And again, that's one thing to think about with like the sanitization of these variable values is many times it can be very, very, very simple. And, you know, if you add this all into one particular function that you create for all variable values that are coming into your system, you can just kind of stack these on top of each other to really clean things out pretty well. But anyways, that's the HTML escape and something that you should be looking at. Again, if you have anything where people will input information and then it will be displayed to other users, simply doing a basic thing like HTML escape can be very, very valuable from a security standpoint for your platform. So there you go. There is a basic overview of how to sanitize strings in Python. So in the previous class, we learned how to filter variable values. So basically, if people are trying to give you data and it's not formatted properly, right? You want an email address and they give you a phone number. You want a phone number, they give you an email address. I showed you how to filter that. So basically, your code will see what they presented, say, no, that's not what I'm looking for, and then re-ask for it. So that doesn't go into the system. So filtering is a very important component of actually making sure that your data is clean. And then sanitizing the data, once you know, okay, they actually plugged in their name, then actually cleaning that data up, getting rid of things like white spaces. That's the next thing that you're going to need to do to be able to clean up your data. Again, having clean data is the most important thing for your system. When you're going and you're going to be adding up data. Again, you want to know all the sales for a day or the average of sales for a day, or if you need to know all of your different users, making sure that your data is clean and appropriately formatted is going to be one of the most important tasks for you so that it doesn't really mess up users going down the pike. Again, if you have a user account, and it's and it's uppercase B-O-B, and then you have a different user account that's all lowercase b-o-b, and then you have a different user account with a mix, right? That's going to be issues. If you have white spaces around it, that's going to be an issue. Again, one of the problems that I had realistically, again, probably 15 years ago, most of this stuff has been cleaned up by now. Most programmers know to do this. But again, I had, it was called MindSpring. There was an internet service called MindSpring, again, 15 plus years ago. Anyways, one of the interesting things that I found with it is it didn't do this lower or upper thing with your username value. So when I would plug in my email address to log into the system, if I didn't use the exact capitalization that I used when I set up my account, it would not see my username because it wasn't the same username, and it wouldn't allow me to log in to actually be able to access my email. Again, you want to talk about frustration. You're sitting there trying to figure out what the hell's wrong with your password. Your password is fine. How you plugged in your email address, that's different than what you originally did. And that can be a problem, right? You're sitting there, you're not thinking, or your user's not really thinking about it. They type in their email address, or they type in a display name, however they want to type it. They're not thinking about the capitalization because they just assume the data will get cleaned up. You don't clean up the data properly, and now all of a sudden they have to remember, okay, the first letter is uppercase and the third letter is uppercase. All right, that can be a bit of a disaster for trying to figure out. So anyways, that's how to sanitize strings. Again, what you will need to do for your particular projects might be pretty specific. So just use these basic methods and tools that I showed you and go from here to figure out how you need to clean up your data for your particular project. As always, I enjoy teaching this class and look forward to seeing the next one.